You have heard it said to those of ancient times, "You shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment." But I say to you that if you are angry with a brother or sister, you will be liable to judgment. And if you insult a brother or sister, you will be liable to the council. And if you say, "You fool," you will be liable to the hell of fire. So when you are offering your gift at the altar, if you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are on the way to court with him. Or your accuser may hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the guard, and you will be thrown into prison. Truly I tell you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny. You have heard that it was said, "You shall not commit adultery." But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to go into hell. It was also said, "Whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce." But I say to you that anyone who divorces his wife, except on the ground of unchastity, causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Again, you have heard it said that it was to those of ancient times, "You shall not swear falsely, but carry out the vows you have made to the Lord." But I say to you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let your word be yes, yes, or no, no. Anything more than this comes from the evil one. Last Wednesday in confirmation, we started our unit on the 10 Commandments. We talked about how rules protect us and other people, how they help us to live together in community and to limit the harm that we do to one another. Yet rules and consequences can only restrain evil. They are powerless to convert the human heart and to transform life. While teaching on the mountain, Jesus takes his disciples on an inward journey of self-examination. He begins with the recognizable acts that destroy our ability to live together: murder, adultery, divorce, and insincere vows. Then he takes each act back to the very beginning, the very moment that act was conceived in the heart. You have heard it said of those in ancient times, "You shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment." But I say to you that if you are angry with a brother or sister, you will be liable to judgment, and if you insult a brother or sister, you will be liable to the council. And if you say, "You fool," you will be liable to the hell of fire. Now, murder is not an ordinary part of human nature. Murder is one of the mature fruits of anger. Anger that is suppressed, allowed to fester, or inappropriately addressed often expresses itself in destructive ways. Now, on Wednesday, I shared a story with the confirmation class about a time that I was angry in high school. I don't really remember why I was angry, but I got into an argument with my parents. As I stormed off, I hit a wall to make a point. Unfortunately, I left a nice hole in the wall. Consequently, I had to learn how to repair drywall for expressing my anger destructively. As we mature and the hormones that rage through our bodies in younger years begin to quiet down, we become more practiced in the art of self-control. Yet this doesn't prevent us from saying things that we wish we could take back, or doing things that we later regret. This is why it troubles me when Jesus says, if you say, "You fool," you will be liable to the hell of fire. And it is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. Now, just to clarify, we're not talking about an afterlife for any immortal spirits. We're talking about an afterlife where our physical body suffers the consequences of our transgressions. One careless slip of the tongue, one lustful glance, even one harmful act seems to be enough to convict us of rebelling against God's reign. This tells us something about the seriousness with which God regards the breakdown of community. Now, before I go any further, I want to take a moment to talk about hell. It's kind of the elephant in Jesus' teaching that we can't quite look past. And we can't rightly understand Jesus' teaching if we don't have a right understanding of hell. So, here's a picture of it. This is Gehenna, or the word that we know in English as hell. Gehenna is a valley which runs south of Jerusalem. You can see it right there, the Hinnom Valley. It's a bottom yellow line. And the name Gehenna literally means Valley of the Sons of Hinnom. I don't know about you, but that looks like a place I'd like to have a picnic. Maybe fly a kite. Now, this beautiful valley has a sordid past. In ancient times, before God brought Israel into the land, the inhabitants worshipped a god they called Moloch, who was half cow, half man. Moloch was associated with fire and fertility. His followers are best known for their practice of child sacrifice. Although this practice was an abomination to God and to God's servants, Moloch was worshipped by many in the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. Even a few kings made sacrifices to Moloch. In the eyes of the prophets, Gehenna was a place of sin, idolatry, fire, and death. The prophet Jeremiah received the historical destruction of the kingdoms of Israel and Judah as God's punishment for worshiping Moloch, among other gods. In the prophecies of both Jeremiah and Isaiah, Gehenna becomes an everlasting symbol of God's judgment on those who rebel against God. They use imagery so graphic, it could only be shown in an R-rated movie. This gave rise to the belief that Gehenna would be the site of God's final judgment, an event that was expected to occur during the lifetime of Jesus' original followers. So when Jesus teaches that we rebel against God and are worthy of Gehenna the very moment sinful acts are conceived in our hearts, he is making a powerful statement about how God regards the breakdown of human community. One careless slip of the tongue, one lustful glance, or one harmful action are just as odious to God as the worship of Moloch and the practice of child sacrifice. Who knew that disrespecting my parents and making an angry hole in the wall could be so offensive to God? Jesus does not clear us of our guilt as if our transgressions don't matter to God. Instead, Jesus teaches us to turn from rebellion and to be reconciled with those we wrong. Concerning anger, Jesus says, When you are offering your gift at the altar, if you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First, be reconciled to your brother or sister. Then, come offer your gift. In other words, we cannot truly worship God if we continue to rebel against God's kingdom in our hearts. The one who truly loves God is the one who seeks forgiveness for causing injury to others. Likewise, Jesus' teaching regarding adultery encourages us to remove anything that causes us to stumble from faithful living. Jesus teaches, if your right eye causes you to sin, which in Greek means to stumble, tear it out and throw it away. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. In other words, remove anything that tempts you to cause injury to another through your own weakness. It's like the one who goes on a diet and keeps a shelf full of potato chips and cookies. As long as the junk food is within reach, no real change is going to occur. Jesus' teaching on divorce protects those who enter into one of the most vulnerable relationships one can have with another person. He says, anyone who divorces his wife, except on the ground of unchastity, causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman also commits adultery. In other words, the breakdown of a marriage is a tragic event that causes injury to many. Now, this teaching has been abused by many pastors and teachers throughout the years. And at its core, it tells us something that each of us already knows. No one should take on the life of another person casually or lightly. And as for oaths, Jesus says, do not swear at all. Let your word be yes, yes, or no, no. In other words, mean what you say. Genuine speech builds trust, while insincerity destroys it. So this is the way we are to live in the kingdom of heaven. These are the things that Jesus teaches us to do, perhaps the laws that Jesus gives. But external rules can only bind sin. They are powerless to transform a life. For this reason, Christ was born of Mary, to do for us what no law could ever hope to do. As God made flesh, he reconciles us to our Creator and to one another without our aid. Even though his teaching condemns the smallest infraction, his love restores even the most deplorable sinner. The one who has experienced the full weight of his or her sin truly knows the transforming power of Christ's love. The Father does not abandon us when we are found guilty of rebellion. Even when we nailed Christ, the very image of God, to the cross, the Father raised him to new life. And by the power of his Spirit, our rebellion is forgiven, and we are redeemed from certain death to live a renewed life. You and I have been given the grace of Jesus' gospel in the midst of a broken world. We have been possessed by the Spirit of God for the work of reconciliation and peace in our communities. We have been given the authority to forgive sins, to heal broken relationships in the name of Christ. When we stumble and fall, Jesus raises us up. When we are broken, Jesus heals us. When we are convicted, Jesus forgives us. And when we are empty, Jesus fills us with his Spirit of life.